Hello, my name is Benjamin Martinez from Marble Coaster Studios, and this is a pitch presentation for our game Lockdown. Lockdown is a first person survival horror game, and you play the role of a security guard at a research facility that studies anomalous entities. Your specific job is to make sure that these entities are properly taken in and transferred into their designated cells for research. Face to face contact is avoided with them at all costs. So, to contain them, you monitor them using the facility's camera system, and you'll have access to a variety of tools and abilities to manipulate their path and guide them to their specific cells.
Our target audience for Lockdown is mid 20s young adults. The rating for Lockdown is going to be T for teen. And the camera view for Lockdown is a camera swap kind of security guard first person. The personas we went with uh, is Timothy, Jacob, Samantha, and Hugo, pictured here on the right. Their personas we kind of felt were people that like scary movies, um, okay with doing multiple tasks at once, like dealing with multiple things at once, not one to believe in bad luck.
So for the game loop, it's pretty simple. It all starts at the moment that you start the game. As soon as you start the game, the first thing it's going to be tracking the monsters. Whether you actually save yourself or get caught. For the core action, most of the game is going to be camera movement. Lure the enemy, get him away from the camera, and get him close by doing different abilities. Opening up the doors, closing up the doors, and opening up the cage and closing up the cage.
The short-term goal is to keep the monsters and creatures away from you at all costs, using all tools that you are given and available to you. And long-term goals are to lead all monsters designated to their designated cells before they kill you, and the game is going to restart. The next one is the feedback, and I'm going to go over this in further detail later on in the video, but there's going to be auditory feedback and visual feedbacks to help the player understand what's going on, when and where.
As for the platform for Lockdown, this will be on the PC where you can access it through Steam or Epic Games, along with it being only a keyboard and mouse input, kind of like a point and click type of game. And Lockdown is such a unique game because you always have to watch the monsters at all times, while also navigating through the cameras a lot, as this can be compared to games like I'm on Observation Duty, the first ever Five Nights at Freddy's, and also SCP Containment Breach, with having to watch through the cameras and watch out for monsters.
Thanks for watching Marble Coaster's pitch for Lockdown.
Lockdown takes place in a very dark research facility that is inhabited by a bunch of unique and terrifying entities. And of course, the ambiance in this game is second to none. Alarms, monster growls, prisoner screams, all of those put you on edge and give you the feel of anxiety. Of course, monsters lurk in the shadows and they cooperate with each other to try to bring you down as you sit in the control tower to try to contain them in an area. You can close doors, you can bait the monsters with prisoners, and you can patrol cameras as you survive each level by containing the monsters. Of course, monsters will do whatever it takes to get to you, controlling prisoners, messing up cameras, and breaking doors. Survive the facility, and it's haunting monsters, and can contain them to win the game. And of course, no one likes to be haunted by anything. So the fear of being hunted by these different monsters that their powers are extremely rare will give you the feeling of anxiety and suspense due to having to watch the cameras constantly and try to navigate them into an area to where you have to contain them. And also the feeling of being trapped, the feeling of I'm surrounded by a bunch of monsters and there's a bunch of doors and they're all trying to get me while I sit in this one room. It makes you have a sense of hopelessness, and you feel very trapped in that space. And as you're playing this, you're given a question. You're thinking of a question of, am I trapped in here with the monster, or is the monster trapped in here with me? You have the option to contain the monster in the room, as long as the monster getting in your room and potentially killing you.
All right. The plot of Lockdown is you're starting a new job as a security guard in a underground, mysterious facility, and your job is to kind of capture these anomalies, these creatures uh, that each have their own individual crazy thing going on. The creatures are hostile, and they will do anything to escape, which also means kill you if needed. But your job is to use your remote cameras to distract and pull and push the creatures into their containment areas before they find you.
We have our UI flowchart. So when you start the game, get a splash screen of the logo, the game title, and it goes into the main menu where you can start a new game, load a new game, go into settings, or bring up the credits. For a new game, we only have one save slot, and for load as well, one slot for the time being. For settings, you have sliders for the master volume, sound effects, or music specifically, whatever you want to do. For the controls, since we're using mouse and keyboard, we're going to be adjusting keybinds. So you'll have the option to set keybinds for different things that you'll be able to do in the game. Going into the game state itself, you'll have buttons for the map, abilities, objective, and pause I have here will be either a button or a keybind. I haven't quite decided. That's what we have so far. For when you click on the map, it'll bring up a screen with the map on it. And then for the pause menu, you'll have buttons to resume the game, go to the settings, or quit that session to the main menu. For the abilities, there's going to be a little box on the bottom right hand side that will show what abilities you have available for that camera that you're on. The objective will be shown on the top right. That will show you which monster you are currently targeting to capture and in which specific room that you're looking for. So here we have as a mock-up, we have the map button up here, objective, top right, and abilities on the bottom right. And up on the top center will be a label for the camera room that you're in. Here when you click on the map, it'll show, this screen will come up, and here will show a map of the entire level that you are currently in, whether it be 4 rooms, 5 rooms, however we scale up depending on which level you get to. And the objective, as I said earlier, it's going to show, say, trap whatever monster you get in cell, whichever one cell is chosen. And for abilities, you'll have these listed here, ones that you're able to use.
So one of the first core systems in the game is the camera system itself. It's used to track the creatures in all the individual rooms. There's a camera set up. The player can swap between these cameras, either one at a time with A and D, or by selecting the camera on some sort of mini map to get to the exact camera they would like to get to. The creatures can affect these cameras by sometimes shutting the camera down, making it fuzzy, getting in the way so you can't see anything else. And the cameras themselves can also affect the creatures by sending out a lure in one of the cameras to pull creatures towards it, sending out kind of like a repulse to get creatures out of that room, and also some sort of stun effect that will stun the creatures near the camera.
So for one of our core systems, we're going to have the player be given a series of doors that's going to be the main part of the game, because that's going to keep monsters away from the player and help direct the monsters that are trying to get to the player to their designated cells. So this is going to be very strategic and really the main way that the player is going to be winning the game. Of course, there are going to be external factors, of course, but the doors are the main that we're very excited to see work in the game. The monsters will be able to be stopped in their tracks when a door closes in front of them, and they will be probably either turning around or they will be waiting, depending on if you're using the camera system that we have set up, which we're also very excited to talk about in the future.
And of course, one of the biggest things you can do in this game is use your prisoners. Prisoners are always your best friends to baiting the monsters into a room. Whenever the monster can be too close to you, or whenever the monster is, or you're trying to get the monster into a room, you can always bait the prisoner to go in there and act as bait to get the monster into that room.
So for my system that I'm covering, that's going to be tracking monsters. So summary, tracking location and status of monsters in game. This will use cameras and a map that the player will need to update manually. For components, we have the monster characters themselves, the map, the prison cells within each room, and the cameras. For stats and variables, players will need to locate the monsters using the cameras to locate them visually, and then once they figure out where they are, they're going to open up the map. That'll be divided and numbered in correlation with the number of cameras that they will be using in that specific level. So in this example, it's 4 cameras will equal 4 rooms on the map labeled 1 through 4. The map will have icons for the monsters that the player will need to move as they track them throughout the session. Each room on the map will have an area that the player can put the monster into, the monster icon into once they are captured, and there will also be an icon for the cameras in each room so that the player can jump to that specific room directly.
For the core system, picking between 2 monsters is the main thing to actually do your plan, as well to actually achieve what you really want to do, that is capture the monsters, and actually strategize a little bit, actually using the baits the right way, or actually using any type of resource that might affect them or not, depending on the monsters. So at the moment that you start the game, it's a lot easier if you actually see and analyze, look at both monsters and analyze and choose between them. You have to use your actual baits wisely. At the moment that you're using them, depending on what you do, it's going to be have limited resources, or at the moment that it's cooling down, if you're from time to time you're using the wrong bait into the wrong place, then you're gonna face a lot of consequences at the end of the day.
The first core mechanic I would like to explain is line of sight, specifically for the monster we're calling Peanut. How it works is from the player's view in the camera that they're specifically looking through. There's going to be a line trace from the camera into everything they can see, and if that line trace touches Peanut, then he's frozen. He cannot move. And specific other creatures will also be affected by this line of sight. An unnamed creature at the moment, if you look at him for too long, he'll actually break the camera. So kind of a mix between the different monsters.
So one of the mechanics that I'm very excited about is the noises that the cameras will make. So when you switch to a camera, it's going to trigger a beeping sound that some monsters will hear. Again, you don't know which monsters will react to the sound, so we're very excited to see the player kind of learn about all these creatures. Pulling to a camera will trigger a loud buzzing. So again, that will also alert a monster that, oh, someone's maybe looking at me, or oh, I'm going to be distracted and look over in this direction. The last one is when the player stuns a monster, which is something that I'm also very excited about. It actually makes a loud ringing sound. So, I relayed it to maybe like a flashbang or something, to where it really gives audible feedback to the player that they have stunned the creature. So we're very excited to see that work out as well.
Prisoners are used to bait monsters in different areas. As you start the game, you only get 2 prisoners, but you have a chance to gain an extra prisoner when you first begin level 1 to use as bait. And of course, you navigate your prisoners through the facility to lead them into rooms, to get the monsters away from a room, to get the monsters into a room. You can do whatever you want with the prisoner to bait and use it against the monster. And of course, the monster will follow the prisoner. If they see him, they'll try to catch him. And of course, if the monster catches the prisoner dies, and you're no longer able to get it back. You only get 3 prisoners. And so after those 3 prisoners are done, you have no more prisoners for the rest of the game.
And for my mechanic, that's going to be the unicorn monster NPC, where unicorn's ability will be that of reducing the camera's visibility when it is in that room. And for its description, it's going to be a green horse with white hair, gold horn on its head. Simple unicorn. For the states, we have moving, idle normal, idle stunned, idle captured, and attack. And going a little bit deeper into those, for the movement, whenever it's in a room, it'll be in there for 15 seconds before moving on. And when it's moving in between rooms, it takes 15 seconds to move from one room to the next. Whenever it is stunned, it will stay in place for 10 seconds, and the ability for the reduced camera visibility will be disabled while it is stunned. And also, when it is captured, the ability will be disabled for the rest of the game session while it is captured. For its attack, whenever the player releases prisoners and the unicorn sees one, it's going to charge at them, and if the unicorn reaches that prisoner, it's going to kill it instantly, and you will lose that specific prisoner that you sent out.
For the core system, one of the biggest thing is going to be the monster. Depending on which monsters you're going to have or the monsters that you're hunting, it's going to be the difficult of the game. Some monsters require a little bit more time to actually figure out how to actually get them in the cage. It'll try to be, for example, like an static. So you're moving out the cameras, just hitting on any buttons, like just changing cameras in camera 1, 2, 3, or 4. But one of the cameras is going to have a different effect. It could be an effect just changing the color of the environment, or an effect to actually do static or just shut down completely. Depending on the monster, it's going to be the different challenge. So for the level design, it's going to be a first stage where it's going to be a prison. And it's going to be 4 rooms, and the 4 rooms are going to surround the actual tower in the middle. Most of the rooms are going to be where the actual monster is going to be, or where you can set up the bait. Let's say, for example, the monster gets in one of the rooms. You set one of the baits, and it'll distract the monster while you plan your way to actually getting the monster into the cage or in his final destination. Usually how it works is that at the moment that you find the monster itself, you can lure the bait, he'll get distracted, and in the case if he's done with the lure, with the actual lures, he'll go back to hunting you. Once he starts hunting you, you'll have other ways to actually distract it. Now the level design, it was more on dark corridors and very, very narrow paths, but for now it's gonna be just the 4 stages. Once you hit it there, you put it one of the cage, and one of the cage, once it ends up, you close it, and that's it, your game win. So for the environments, we wanted to use the first stage as a prison. A prison usually has a few rooms. I may say it has a lot of rooms, but we can actually play with the whole entire different areas. So the whole entire stage is going to be pretty dark, not so dark, but the dark tone to actually just mix between blue, dark blue, and gray. And the prison cells, usually we start using the prison because in the prison we can have a different types of environments, where the actual cell is to the actual kitchen and the resting area and the basketball courts. All those areas can be used as an actual type of environment. You're gonna be centralized right there between all those areas, like at the watchtower, and from there you can see how everything's gonna blend up with the monster itself. It's gonna be a little bit harder first to actually find the monster. Usually you will find it as a silhouette or anything like that on some of the areas, but once you find them, then you'll actually have the whole image of the monster right in front of you while you're doing everything, while you're tossing the obstacles and everything. On the other areas, usually are going to be most of it. It's going to be prison doors, fences, electrical wire fences, and all those things that you can actually find on a prison.
So we're going to be working in Unreal Engine 5. We're very excited about this because we want it to be the most realistic as possible to scare the player and make it really feel immersive. And that also goes into the audio side of it. So we have set up the game so that it offers 3D audio, so that it really makes you feel like you are in that seat. You are the one controlling all of this, but the monsters are going to be around you and you can hear things around. That just adds a little bit of suspense. And assets, we're going to be using all the assets from the Epic Games Store, or we will be designing them ourselves so that everything is legal and everything stays good.
Again, thank you so much for watching the extended pitch for Lockdown. If you have any questions, link them down below or get in contact with one of us, and we'll be happy to answer your questions.